Okay, we're here. Let me know in the chat room whether you can hear and see me. And let me go pull the document for today. There it is. Lots of questions. Wow, lots of questions. I don't even know if I could get to all this. All right, let me make sure you guys are there. Seeing here, great. I'm looking for the guy with the baby. Thank you. Yeah, my daughter's absolutely calm compared to my son. My son's a wild man, so 100%. Great. Okay, guys, I'm going to get into questions because there's a lot. Where the hell did they go? Too many windows. Okay, here we go. Follow-up questions from last week? Oh, none. Okay, so this week's questions. Is it fair to say that one of the first steps in this whole concept must be to maintain or heal the vessel? Someone has brain fog through poor lifestyle choices. Their attention focus becomes limited. Their connection with superconsciousness, heal the body, heal the pathway. Yeah, I mean, the piece of that you really need to kind of like step into is your yi, or your mind or your intellect is housed in the center, right? It's housed, I'm actually open to chapter 12 here. It's housed in the middle of all things, and that is the domain of the spleen and the earth element, which very much has to do with the digestion and processing of food, and the qi is made as you breathe and all that. So there's Li Deng Yuan is kind of one of the famous scholars of Chinese medicine, and his school is called the Earth School, and that's primarily the interface of what they're talking about, which is, get the center right so that then you can have access to heaven and earth. The superconsciousness is the great Dhow, or as a table, page 240, gets from the great Dhow. Let me just go to table page 240 now that we're there. Well, yeah, it's our thread to the great Dhow, right? So it has access, the superconscious mind has access to the infinite wisdom of the great Dhow. But the self-conscious mind can't perceive that, so it has to take that in the form of dreams and metaphor and image and sensory clues through the subconscious. In the archive call and anatomy of consciousness, you say superconsciousness is our connection with our higher self. So we shouldn't think of it as separate from us, the candle and flame thing. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. The perception that anything is separate from us is the delusion of separation. And that's kind of why humanity is in disarray. Regarding the subconsciousness and water, saying, I feel it in my waters. If you have good levels of nutrition, is that like tapping into super consciousness? Should we learn to trust this? Oh, intuition. Jesus. My eyes aren't tripping. Yeah, the intuition is the subconscious tapping into superconscious wisdom. Absolutely learn to trust it, but then validate it against reality and make sure that it is indeed accurate. I did this thing called remote viewing training for years, which was something developed by the military by studying the psychology of psychics to see how they do it. And so everything has to be validated, but they scientifically were able to do kind of very sophisticated psychic espionage and all kinds of crazy things, and they validated their results by testing. And I would do the same with this, and that's when you learn to trust it. In the archive call, you talk about programming our subconscious mind with new habits and thoughts and etc. And then how the subconscious feeds back to the self-conscious. So would it be like you get your diet clean, you do your qigong, and then you feel better? Is the feeling better the feedback loop to the self-conscious? So you know this is a good thing for you, you're doing on the right path. Yes, that's the kind of a validation piece to that. But an example I would probably say that's more kind of specific to what I'm talking about there is, let's go with the theme we had for a couple of weeks recently, which is kind of money and abundance issues. Is you got money hangups, so that you program into your subconscious and say to yourself, you know, I deserve money, and you know, I enjoy abundance, and all sorts of things that you kind of program into your, all that kind of law of attraction stuff, and you program that into your subconscious, and then your subconscious will feed that back into your self-conscious, and you'll start making better decisions and being more supportive of a more abundant life by doing so. Also in the archive call, you say that through our techniques like meditation, qigong, for example, our subconscious become receptive to connection to the higher self and become more aware of who we truly are. What do you mean here? Like our identity? Example, we like animals and are good at doing crosswords, or you mean something a bit heavier? It's how we define ourselves. Does it really matter? Just another label. I'll make sure I answer or understand the question here. Yeah, so a bit heavier. When we become connected to our higher self and we have a glimpse into who we really are, the enormity of that makes cracks in the foundation of who we think we are, and it starts to get us to take that identity way less seriously. That's the identity that gets offended. That's the identity that gets shamed. That's the identity that needs credit for things. Imagine how much easier life would be without all that bullshit, right? And that's how you connect with the higher self, so that you disempower, or you draw against the energy that's leaking into those mechanisms. Page 244, the law of attraction quote. From Dhows perspective, it teaches us to take desires tied to our attention and to take them in order to make them happen. It's about the fulfilling of dreams and the empowerment of people through universal laws. So is it that I plant a seed of my goal and it happens easily, or I need to actively take steps to make decisions as to whether this is aligned with my goal? I often get tied up as to whether to move forward with something. A goal that isn't acted upon on a daily basis is a dream that might never see the light of day. So you take your desires and then you focus on them, and then you intend them, and then you take actionable steps every day. That's how you get things done. I'm a bit confused about ideas that our brain has versus it being superconscious giving me guidance. In fact, on every great idea I had, I'd be exhausted. We're taught through meditation that we don't need to believe every stupid thought we have and to calm our minds. So how do we decide what's just a stupid thought, what's divine inspiration? I will immediately say that divine inspiration feels like divine inspiration and feels like a very different type of holistic form of thought. And when you have tied into that enough times, you will recognize the difference, and you will act on the divine inspiration, and you know the random thoughts. And so that's just time on your cushion. A further note is it fair to say that we get inspiration from superconsciousness, but then we put our intellect to that inspiration to make assessment and judgment, which maybe influenced our beliefs is too scary? Yeah, absolutely. There's plenty of actionable intel that comes from the superconscious mind through the subconscious all the time, but then that has to weigh against the intellect and the self identity, which needs to make it make sense based on its narrowed definition of self and rules that it has created so that it tries to avoid annihilation. And so that's the name of the game, is silencing that voice and allowing that other voice that understands that we're way more than that narrow definition to help us create an expanded sense of self-identity that isn't about our egotism, but it's about our connection with all life, and simultaneously find a way to trim down and nuance the narrative of that self-identity so that we can go to the grocery store and buy stuff and not be, just mumbling and talking to God all the time. So there's a subtle balance, but that's where you will find as you connect deeper with the superconscious voice. You refer to the two offspring, yin and yang. That sounds like Adam and Eve. Well, yeah, a lot of the ancient narratives are built upon the separation of masculine and feminine principles and how that kind of created life. None of this is new. Through the resultant reactions to our aversions and cravings, born this fall, you begin to create noise in this channel. It sounds like Eve choosing craving an apple. We thought we lost Eden, but all we really lost was our ability to see it. Yeah. God and revelation is the great Dhow. Is it all the same, just words? Why has there been a need by different cultures to rename it and make it so complicated? Well, because it is slightly complicated, because it's way bigger than anyone could perceive. And so taking it, and the Tao that can be named is not the eternal Tao. The Hindus have 33 million gods, and what that means is there are more faces to God than there are ways to define. And so just being able to speak of the unspeakable in words is a challenge, because by definition it is a limiting thing to do, to define, right? And so the infinite has no container. And so the words get misused. People are trying. Stupid people take the words and brutalize the concepts. Smart people use the words interchangeably, in my opinion. The great Tao is all things and places and times all at once, is unfolding and spiraling in and out of existence in every instant. Accounts for all the cycles within cycles that account for the movement of the largest clusters of galaxies to the subatomic interactions going on in every cell of our bodies. This is pretty trippy. Can you briefly explain that to us again? Sure. If you were to close your eyes and go down deep, deep, deep into the cellular structure of just one cell of your body, there's millions and millions of organelles and chemicals and proteins, and then your DNA. As you get further and further, just go straight into one atom. Let's just go to a carbon atom, which has got, 8 neutrons, and then the electrons flowing around it in a kind of a crazy cloud. And there's this enormous, vast distance between the electron cloud and the nucleus. And then when you get in the nucleus, you go through the protons and neutrons, you start going to quarks and leptons and all sorts of weird stuff that I didn't even, like when I was in school, they hadn't even discovered this stuff, and they probably discovered something yesterday that we don't even know about yet. But it goes down to a scale that's like 10 to the minus 33, and it keeps going, and we just can't figure out what the smallest piece of all this is. And then if you turn around and go through Hubble's telescope and you keep looking out to the edge of the universe, then we get to this place where we don't know if that's just a fractal that puts us into one iteration of a multiverse or what is going on there. We have no idea what's happening. And the further we look, the more we see in both directions. Welcome to infinity. Trying to find the edge of the universe is trying to define God and put a limit on the infinite. It's what our brain tries to do. It doesn't mean we shouldn't look for the edge of the universe, because that helps us know more about ourselves. It's a wonderful game. Revelation, this is how God reveals himself to us in every instant, and how it is our job to accept the reality gracefully without judgment because of how perfect it is. Perhaps I'm misunderstanding this or taking a statement out of context, but if we're ill or in some bad circumstance, we're able to change. Shouldn't we do that instead of just accepting reality? Well, it's more about accepting the fact that you're ill and understanding that reality will move and change in every instant, and that this moment is perfect, and there was probably a lesson in this illness that'll help us grow and know more about ourselves. So it's not like, God damn it, I can't believe I got sick. This is just my luck. I really, really, really don't need this right now. Talk about DNA, human. And we've also learned that the human body harbors a huge amount of bacteria in our microbe. It also has DNA. How does this fit with the subconscious, superconscious mind being able to perform and process epigenetics that you discuss? Some understands information chooses to express themselves by switching. Yep, great question. That's life soup. And we live in this sea of life, in the interconnectivity of the life all around us and in us also switches on genes within ourselves, and we also have proteins and sequences that come from genes in our guts that help code for health and expression. So everything around us is responsible for everything in us and around us, and it's all tied together in this wonderfully orchestrated way of interconnection and interdependence. And who we are is a lot less well defined now that we understand how much genetic information is coming from bacteria. You say in the archive talk about how some people have a limited identity of themselves. Do you think as parents, one of the great gifts we can give our children is in believing in themselves that they can do anything they set out to achieve? Yes. Talk about how we can help them with that, please. Do it yourself. Lead by example. Doesn't it come down to fear, which stops us from doing great things? You do great things, your kids will model that. You talk about great things and you do nothing, your kids will lose respect for you. Be the hero you would like your kid to be. Be the hero, be the parent your kid deserves. What's your advice if you had a spouse contact who outwardly voices memes, I would say, in front of your children, perhaps racial comments? You see them being absorbed into your child's subconscious. Punch the spouse in the face is my flippant response, right? Which is, when you see an injustice, you correct that. And you sit them down and you let them know that that's not okay. And then if that is something that's happening, you then sit down the child and say, this is not okay, and this is racial, and this is why it's wrong. But you don't roll over and let that happen. When you witness an atrocity, you step out in front of it. I won't draw a lower bar than that. Your Machu Picchu experience was fascinating and profound. Was there a download, is the question. Yeah, it was more like tying into ancestral DNA and being connected to an oracle that I can constantly tap into that allows me kind of like a wormhole portal of access into ancient wisdom. And I could just follow that experience and kind of sink through the wall and step into that kind of trans-dimensional reality by following those footsteps, and then go to a place to ask ancestors or great mama, Panchamama, any questions that emerge. The more we connect our subconscious and our superconscious minds by listening internally and clearing away the noise, the more we become that realization. Can you use some practical advice on how to do that? Take care of your body. Allow your intellect to not take itself more seriously than it needs to. Sit in meditation. Listen to the noise. Connect through your heart with your superconscious mind and constantly program into your subconscious memes or lessons or practical swaps for things that are going to replace the harmful memes. So the more you weed and the more you plant, the clearer the garden gets, the better you get at focusing your mind and settling it. And it's very hard to settle your mind after a cheese pizza from Domino's. So eat real food, breathe fresh air, move your body, do all the things we talk about in the Urban Monk Gestalt. And it gets easier and easier. And as you get better at this, then you have an anchor into that feeling and that perception that you can then follow all the way in and just have much better realizations and meditations as you go. You talk about how the mask is not the self. We get better at this game. Perhaps we don't need a mask, or like you mentioned, just swap out the mask depending on the audience at the time. Yeah, I think while we're in a body, it's very hard to not have masks. Right now I'm wearing my teacher mask with you guys. Later on I'll wear my goofy dad mask with my kid. But I have to remember that none of those are the real me, and most of them are very close to the real me, but they are different personas to interface with the different people that you're serving and interacting with in life. A lot of people who've lost that mask are walking around, if you look at Eckhart Tolle's history, when he had his kind of profound realization, he was a mumbling idiot for a couple of years because he lost all masks and he realized the folly of the mask. But he lost access to the utility of the mask, which helps him engage and interact on this three-dimensional plane with human beings who coexist and are here and, might ask you to get out of their way, or, how much is that dinner? You have to count out change for them, right? It's hard. Masks serve us, but we can't become servants to the masks. You speak about how frictionless interface is what we are after. Friction is unnecessary energy and drama in your table. So you're talking about our memes, our cravings, our aversions. So should we be moving towards less friction with our training, hopefully? Yeah. The metaphor that I used, example, I guess, is this concept of impedance in electrical terms being blockage to the flow, the free flow of electricity in the channel. And that metaphor really holds muster when we talk about this stuff, is clear the impedance and let more light and energy flow through you, and you will ignite your light body and you will become a light unto yourself, and you will activate, and that goes into chapter 14 and all that, but you will activate in ways that will be supportive of everything around you, because now you are the light and you got out of the way. On page 250, what does the trigram look for the fusion of fire and water, heaven and earth? That's a hexagram. So the trigrams of fire and the trigrams of water come together into a hexagram of heaven and earth. Let me see, is that not in there? Who wrote this book anyways? Oh, yeah, but that's got to be in there. Hold on. Oh, go to, wow. Yeah, so we have the pure trigrams, and then we have the hexagram. And so I'll have to pull that. We're out of time, so I'll have to pull that out of the I Ching and show you. But the hexagram is never so I just want to be very clear about this. The hexagram is going to be the two trigrams together, which mean thunder, mountain, and all that kind of stuff. That's not what I'm talking about here. What I'm talking about is when you take the trigrams and you juxtapose them, then you have pure heaven and pure earth, right? Is the three bars, the three solid bars is pure heaven. The three broken bars are pure earth. And by earth, we mean kind of primordial, not like the element. And so then fire, water is what you see on page 238, which is the fusion of heaven and earth. And then the ultimate balance there can never be shown in a trigram or even a hexagram, because that is the Dhow, right? Is the blend where those things are constantly self-organizing and coming to that balance, right? After listening to the archive call, I had a bit of a aha moment with the fire and water, heaven and earth, steam cleaning the pathway. Very cool. Thank you. You're very welcome. Cool. Let me go back to our chat room and make sure everything's cool. Where the hell is the chat room? Here we go. Cool. Great. All right, I think we got it all. I'm going to go home to my wife, who's panicking because she has 2 kids with her, and the nanny is leaving in 2 minutes. So thanks. I'll see you next week. And great questions, great time. Thank you.